looks like we're pretty well settled in here. So if anybody else pops in, we'll do some intros really quick and they can catch up with us. So I just want to start by thanking you all for joining us for our monthly Indigenous film series. And my name is Megan. I am the Adult Programs Coordinator here at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And I'm your host for this evening. So we just want to thank everybody involved. The museum is pleased to partner with the International Institute for Indigenous Resource Management and the Denver American Indian Commission to present the Indigenous film series. And as I mentioned, this is our first look getting ready for our film festival, which is coming in October. So we wanted to start with a bang. As you watch tonight's presentation, please, like I said, put your questions, comments in the chat, anything that's on your mind. If you have a question, if you just want to gush about what you liked about it, please feel free to pop those in the chat. And without further ado, I want to begin tonight's event with Jean Rubin, Director of Indigenous Film and Arts Festival.
Okay, actually, let's turn the mic over to
oh yes, forgive me, Carla.
For Carla Respects Nothing, one of our Denver American Indian Commission commissioners. Commission is a partner in the film series, so Carla has joined us to offer a few words of welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carla Respects Nothing. I'm Oglala Lakota, longtime Denver resident. Good to see you all tonight. And I'd like to welcome you to our the beginning of our new film festival. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Been a year on a commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
Yeah.
Okay. So, welcome everybody to tonight's program, Experimental Film Communicating Through Sound, Light, and Dance. This is part of our monthly Indigenous film series, as well as the first look at our 2023 Indigenous Film and Arts Festival with this year's theme, The Good Life. I'm Jean Rubin. I direct all of our film programs. With me is Merv Tano, president of our institute. I want to extend our thanks to our partners, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, the Denver American Indian Commission, and our 2023 media sponsor, Kuvo Jazz Radio. So for tonight's program, we have 3 experimental films with speakers from each film joining us later in the program. So the films, in the order we're screening them, are International, and joining us will be the 2 directors, Camille Poirier and Nicolás Aguirre, the choreographer who also dances in the film, Barbara Kaneratonni Diabo, and principal dancer, Marshall Gahande Diabo. Next in the lineup is Savage Future, with director Terry Jones joining us. And third in the series is Biolumin, with director Victoria Hunt joining our conversation. Following the films, we'll give a more full introduction for each of our guests. And then we'll ask Merv to talk a bit about experimental film and pose the first questions to the filmmakers. And then, as always, we'll open it up for Q&A. So you can post your questions at any time in the chat room. But I just wanted to offer a few words of introduction. Experimental film is a genre that you see at film festivals. And it's a shorthand way for the festival to tell you what you're going to see. This is not a typical documentary. It's not going to be a narrative film with a lot of conversation. These experimental films are generally short, often without any spoken word. The communication is through sound, imagery, dance, artistic effects. So when we put the program together, we said, we need to go beyond the concept of experimental film, just from a festival perspective of a way of programming films together. What we wanted to do was talk about experimental film from the perspective of the filmmakers and all the folks collaborating in the creation of these films. So that's what we plan to delve into in our post-screening discussion. In addition to posing questions to the filmmakers, we asked the filmmakers if they wanted to pose any questions to the audience. And the directors of International told us their message is intentionally subtle, and they would very much like to know the message that you as audience members are receiving from the film. So please, keep that in mind as you watch the film, so you can give them some feedback. All right, our total runtime is 15 minutes, and then we will be back for conversation and Q&A with the festival guests. Thank you very much. Let's roll the films. Okay, 3 wonderful films. We really liked all these films, and we're so happy to be able to put them into a program together. We have lots of folks on the panel. I'm going to run through who our guests are by film in the order we saw the films. These are all very talented people, and I have seriously abridged their bios so we have time to talk to the filmmakers rather than you listen to me talk about them. So very briefly, with International, we have director Nicolás Aguirre. He's a musician and visual artist, originally from Chile, who has been living in Montreal for the past 5 years. With him is his co-director, Montreal-based filmmaker Camille Poirier. She has a passion for storytelling in both fiction and documentary genres. We have Barbara Kaneratonni Diabo. She is originally from Ganawake, now living in Montreal. She's the artistic director and choreographer for Anawara Dance Theater, where she creates dance pieces to bring to light Indigenous themes, stories, and perspectives. Her show Sky Dancers won a Dora Mavor Award for Outstanding touring production in 2022, and she was recipient of the Prix de la Danse de Montreal for Most Notable Dancer in 2021. She performs and creates for generations to come, for her ancestors, for community, to inspire, to communicate, to uplift spirits, and to encourage cultural pride. You saw Barbara dancing in the film, and she was the choreographer. I'm getting it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Next, we have Marshall Kahande Diabo. He was the principal dancer that you saw in the film. Marshall is an award-winning competitive dancer who performs both with dance troupes and as a soloist. He has been dancing powwow and urban dance styles for about 10 years, both on stage and in film. Among his accomplishments, Marshall teaches dance, coaches a competitive dance team, has danced at numerous festivals. He was the subject of a television documentary about inspiring young First Nations children and danced in a new documentary series called Pulse on Aboriginal People's Television Network. Marshall takes pride in being two-spirited and hopes to inspire other youth to be proud of who they are and to reach for their dreams. Next, we have Terry Jones, who directed Savage Future. Terry is the founder of Torn Jersey Media, his independent Indigenous media production company. Terry shares his Haudenosaunee history and culture through numerous media, through film, video, gaming, virtual reality projects, and acting. He strives to find a balance between entertaining and educating his audiences. He's currently pursuing a Master of Fine Arts in Film Production at York University in Toronto. He is also the curator and host of the Haudenosaunee Micro Short Film Program that has been screening at various venues since 2021. Savage Future is Terry's most recent short experimental film and has been making the rounds of film fests in Canada at Images Festival in Toronto, Asinabka in Ottawa, and First Peoples Fest in Montreal. In fact, we screened it at our film festival last year, and we brought it back for this particular screening because it fits so well. We screened a number of Terry's films. We had an evening devoted to his films in 2021. So as you can tell, big fans of his work. And just a note about the screening, something glitched with the Zoom feed. So after the sound got resolved, the gray square boxes that were superimposed on the film, that's not part of the film. That was somehow a Zoom artifact. And with our final film, Biolumin, we have director Victoria Hunt. Victoria was born and raised in Australia, where she lives today. She is another multi-talented individual. She describes herself as a queer Indigenous Maori director, choreographer, dancer, photographer, and filmmaker. She's a founding member of De Quincy Company, Australia's leading body weather dance company based in Sydney, performing in over 50 productions. She's one of 6 artists that was featured in the first edition of BAC Madrid, Biennale of the Arts of the Body, Image, and Movement. She's co-founder of the Weather Beings Collective with Métis multidisciplinary artist Mo Clark, who's based in Montreal. She regularly works with a core team of highly skilled artists whose award-winning works have toured nationally and internationally to critical acclaim. We got to know Victoria through her short film Take, which we brought to our festival in 2020, and which has screened extensively across 6 continents. Her works are intercultural and interdisciplinary, with collaborations among artists, elders, and communities. I will leave it to Victoria to elaborate on her collaborations and the Indigenous concepts that are central to her work. So thank you again to all of our panelists for joining us. Please come live with your mics and your cameras. I'm going to turn the mic over to Merv so he can share some thoughts on tonight's program and begin posing the first questions to the filmmakers. And then, as always, to our audience, feel free to put your comments and questions and observations into the chat room at any time.
Yeah, and it's especially your interpretation, the messages you got from these films. Okay, Merv Tano, thank you, Jean. As Jean mentioned, you've got experimental film as a genre category. Early on, everything was experimental. Technology was new. The whole process of filmmaking was new, so everything was experimental. These days, when we talk about experimental, it tends to be, as Jean said, sort of a catch-all category that encompasses questions of messaging, questions of the incorporation of technological advancements, new toys, new ways of seeing, new palettes, just a whole range of different factors that get smooshed into, that's a technical term, by the way, into this idea of what constitutes experimental. And generally, when you reading about experimental film, it's generally about the viewer. And what we are trying to focus on, as Jean mentioned earlier, is the filmmaker, because in a sense, these experimental endeavors are a platform to test new ideas, new technologies, new concepts, and to see what kind of purchase they get. And so I'd like to start off by going through and with the first film, International. Oh, I'm sorry?
They're having a little trouble with, they can't get their cameras turned on. So while our host is fixing that, maybe go to Terry or Victoria first.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there they are.
Oh, there they
there
are.
they are, all right.
All right, but they're muted, but
There we
okay.
go,
All right,
okay.
okay.
Can you unmute?
So starting with International, then we go to Terry, and then finally to Victoria. What are the experimental objectives, if you will, of your film? Is what are you testing? If it could be anything, including strictly aesthetics. So we'd like to start with Camille and Nicolás, if we would.
Yes. For me, we made the narrative very subtle because we wanted to talk first to the emotion of the viewer. Yes.
Barbara, je sais pas si tu peux me traduire, s'il te plaît, si c'est possible. My
Oui, je vais
English,
essayer.
okay, merci. My English not very well, so Barbara maybe can translate my answer. C'est comme disait Camille, c'est la narrative. On a le scénario, mais après, une fois que le travail est fini, on laisse ça pour la sensibilité du public. Alors c'est vraiment ouvert. Donc,
So he was saying that, they started with somewhat of a sort of a narrative, but then within making the film, they just kind of broke that open and let the public absorb and understand what that narrative or what that could be without being literal.
So, thank you. And how about from Barbara, your perspective and Marshall's perspective as well?
I guess, well, because we were working on the dance side of it mainly, but we also had conversations with the directors. It was very much a collaboration of, from our perspectives, mixed with their talents. And to me, I wanted to experiment. I mean, all dance is kind of vocabulary, but I wanted to also, show some of our so-called traditional dances, like the strength of that and how that is, but also mix it with other styles and putting them together. What would that give? Like, can it exist in the same place? And what does that mean?
Yeah, and I think in a similar way, I found with being able to dance in this film, taking kind of the literal aspects of the city and of nature that you kind of see throughout the entire film, being able to embody that and try and make my movements match those certain themes, but also to bring it to a more abstract sense that can also be up for interpretation, as much dance is in general. I thought that was a really nice way to collaborate different types of medias of putting together like our experimental dance forms and also with different mixed medias and editing.
Go ahead, I have a question too,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to interject here my interpretation, and someone has, in a sense, made the same observation. I really,
Oops.
whoops,
Whoops,
the
sorry.
green arrow, please. The green arrow on the right.
You did it. I don't see the green arrow. Oh, I see it. I see it. Sorry. I'm losing our picture here. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. It's modernity, the dance. I saw those as more frenetic, with the shots of the buildings, the apartment houses, even the drumming, although it remained the same, it became a cacophony of urbanism, as opposed to then and by the way, I love that transition with the face. I thought that was fucking brilliant. Okay. Into this other world, the more natural. And even though you had that underlying beat of the drum that in a sense remained a constant, it seemed as though everything was calmer. And so you had that kind of contrast, which I thought was great. So thank you for that.
I had a question. There's a technique when you're dancing, and I don't know how to describe it except that it looks to me like when you fan out a deck of cards, you know, the way the image kind of fans out. Did you have that in mind when you danced, or did that come about later in the production after they saw you dancing? And I'm just curious about the sequencing of that artistic technique.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't fully my direction. I guess that's more in terms of Camille and Nicolás, I guess. But we did talk about how we wanted multiple marshals, I guess, to be so multiple of me dancing at the same time. And although I didn't fully know how that was going to manifest, I did know that there would be overlap of many of me happening all at once. So I was really excited, and it turned out even more beautiful than I imagined. So yeah.
See, that was another aspect of, if you will, experimentalism that I thought was just really well done in this film, and it's all of those the way the film was edited, to see all of those kinds of merger and different use of the camera. I thought that was also very well done. So I don't know who do we have to thank for that?
I guess it's us.
Okay.
Because at first the film was supposed to be shot in a live action film, but because it was a pandemic, it turns out to be an animation. So it opened the barrier, the
Barrier.
wall, the barriers of our creativity with this technique.
Okay. What's that?
Yeah, we have a comment about the dance, and I'm not quite sure I'm reading this correctly. Contrast between frantic present and more natural, I don't know, diff dance, but all work
Different.
at the same beat. Different dance. Okay. But all work with the same beat. Yeah, that's yeah. It's always interesting to me to see how so many different dances and motions can work with one song. or one, you know, with one beat.
Yeah, it was a challenge when they first presented me with the music. There were so many different lines of that I could have followed for the choreography. I was like, what do I focus on? But then when you start really listening, it just added to the multi-layeredness of what we wanted to present. So we would touch wherever it hit, and some moves worked with all the beats, and some worked with a certain under ones that you might be focused on more as it went through. So it was a challenge, but I find that made it extra rich in the result.
You want to read Bill?
Another comment, with all these films, I can see a reflection of our personal life experiences in a world through the lens of the filmmaker. I can feel a lot of the emotion of the films in my personal experiences, although it's through my lens of experience only. It feels personal to the film, personal to the filmmakers and also to each viewer. That's what's so wonderful about these films. I mean, yes.
That's what I like about experimental film, is that you come to it and with your baggage, you know, good, better, and different.
And this is a follow on still from Bill. This film reminded me of my grandmother's constant reminder to never forget where you come from. It will serve you well with all of the changes you'll see in your lifetime.
Wow.
True.
Okay. Yes, let's move on. Okay, Terry, what was the hypothesis that was being tested?
Okay, hi everybody. What started as when I did my undergrad at Syracuse University, I think we were given the assignment of experimental. So I had done this previous film called Geek Squad, How I Lost My Indian Name, and there I used my eye blinks as a way to change the images in the story using my eye blinks. So I kind of used that here with Savage Future. What I wanted to do was to show the residential school experience, because both of my parents went to residential school, but using my own family as subjects, and to start in the micro and then go to the macro and then back down to the micro. But the experimental part comes in by the soundscape. I guess in some ways it's like film language, because you know, there's no narration, there's no dialogue. So for this assignment, I took Iroquois white corn, I put it in a canister, and then I was listening to the smoke dance, and then I shook the canister and tapped to the beats of the song, and then I took the sound, I put it on a timeline, and then I slowed it way down. So then I gave power to the edits that went to the soundscape and not myself. So every time there was a beat, that was when I changed the image. And there's 24 images with one-word titles. So I was hoping to be able to not have narration or have a title card or dialogue to show that what I said, that was my own family's experience, and you know, with the residential school.
Yeah, what I like about that, Terry, is that you've got that the future generation that has not attended the schools, and yet, in a very real sense, the institutions she's confronted with today are all working to accomplish the same things that the residential schools were trying to achieve. You know, and I mean, that's the message I took from it. The idea, especially with the title, about Savage Futures, because it's the past. But you got this young girl that starts off the film that says, you know, granddaughter, and says, in a sense, be aware, young lady, they're coming to get you, you know. But the idea of being aware so that you approach it with this kind of knowledge beforehand. So it's you making the decisions. That's the way I looked at it, okay? Which I thought was a good way of doing it. Very, very subtle, but nevertheless a good cautionary tale.
I want to weigh in. Terry, there have been many documentaries made about the boarding schools. 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes in length. And this is so powerful. You have said so much in such a powerful way in 3 minutes with no narration. I mean, this, you know, when you think about that, that's one of the amazing things about an experimental film that, you know, that has a message, you know, and does a really good job delivering the message, because you've captured the schools and that, you know, that multi-generational look, you know, going to the past and, as Murph said, going to the future. And I mean, what a powerful 3 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. Like for the casual viewer, what I wanted them to more or less see, who might not have, this might be their first introduction into even knowing that residential schools existed. A lot of times, I think I've heard feedback where people thought they were only in Canada and that there weren't in the United States. And until you see that map, and that map was put out by the Bureau of Indian Affairs under Debbie Howland, like a few days before I did the final edit for this, you know, for this film. But what I wanted to show was that it's not that far removed. Residential schools, yes, may in that form may be in our past, but it's only 2 generations in my family where, you know, the effects of the behaviors, the taught behaviors within that school are passed on to, you know, my mother's kids, me and my brothers, and even to, and for me, what it was is the big thing that I got from my parents is this mistrust of education, of authority figures, which includes teachers and police and the medical profession. And I still have that to that day. And even I'm sure we subconsciously or not intentionally, but we pass that on to our younger generation as well. So, but yeah, I'll just leave it there.
So a question for you, Terry. I thought it was real that the people in the residential school were marked with a question mark. Was that intentional?
So when it says loved or the images?
The images.
I
thought the question mark was with some of the was with photographs of your family. I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, because the narrative, if you want to say there's a narrative to it, this is really my mom's story. And so when the residential school closed, she was sent to an orphanage, a Methodist orphanage. And so when I talk about institutions, because my mom a couple times of my life has asked me, was I a good mother? Because she doesn't have that idea of a nurturing, loving mother. She only has institution that fed her, that gave her, that taught her whatever life knowledge that the school wanted to teach them. So of course I told her, I said, yeah, of course, you know, you, and I also come with an understanding as I got older that it's a valid question for her to ask, you know, and that's what I put, what I hope came through with in the short was, did she feel loved? And I wonder that, you know, as well.
And we have somebody else weighing in on, yes, it was a powerful 3 minutes.
Okay. Victoria, what was the grand experiment?
Tēnā koutou. Well, it's interesting. I think actually, as an artist, as an Indigenous person, but as an artist as well, I feel like just life is experimental. And and to be honest, with this film, Biolumin, we never really sort of intended to, we weren't really consciously setting out to make an experimental film. It was more of a response to life at that point in time, and being in lockdown and being separated from so many loved ones. And I think if anything, it was a love letter that was filled with longing and lamentation, and very intuitive. It was about coming out of lockdown. That was the first time I was able to move and go and visit, a very dear collaborator, artist friend, and his family in Pearl Beach. And I just brought some things with me, like a obsidian stone from my ancestral homeland. So I'm Te Arawa. My ancestral mountain is Tarawera volcano, Tarawera Lake. My iwi or subtribe is Ngāti Hinemihi. Sorry, my hapu is Ngāti Hinemihi. Te Arawa is my iwi. And Hinemihi, importantly, is our whare tupuna, who is an ancestral Māori meeting house that was removed in the 1890s and shipped over to England. So I think for me as an artist, that's always present for me, and it manifests in different ways. And experiment, living in a kind of way of knowledge progression and experimentation, and that's found its way into this film. But it's a love letter, and James Brown and we went down to the ocean, to Mawana Nui a Kiwa, and this obsidian stone, I was thinking about being online so much, and about how our ancestors were able to travel through waterways and jump mountains and through into sky world and back again, and how we're doing this with this technology, but actually what they were able to do, before all of this technology anyway. And so the submersion into a very feminine realm, Atua Mana Wahine, kind of goddess realm of the ocean, as a conveyor and a conduit of messaging that really connects to my whakapapa and dreaming. So we put the camera into the water, GoPro, and we really couldn't sort of see what we were doing either. And I was down there as well, just being very intuitive. So for us, it was a big surprise to come back to the house and go, let's have a look at what happened. And it went from there. Yeah. And my partner, Mo Clark, who lives in Jojargay in Montreal, was also doing a burial ceremony with a friend that is land-based. And so it was also a response to our separation, and knowing that she was going through a burial in the land. And it was sort of my way of taking that on in the realm that I feel most at home in, which is in the ocean.
Yeah. Thank you. We've talked about this before, and the fact is that I'm from Hawaii. So I see in that the underwater, I see the kaimoana, we call limu, the seaweed, algae, food stuff. And so I see that female form as Namaka, the older sister of Pele. Because Namaka is the goddess, if you will, of the ocean, a very almost schizophrenic woman who can visit destruction through tsunami and storms upon the land, but also is benevolent in providing protection for fishers, providing the kaimoana, the fish, all of the seafood for the people. And I looked at that closing shot as you zoomed in on that tattooed face. And for me, it interjected or introduced an element of mystery because I couldn't read the face. You see, and I know the face had a message, the face had a history, but I was unable to read it. And that's not that's not a problem, because it is part for me of that the whole experience. Okay, the stuff you know, or you think you know, and then, well, maybe you don't know as much as you think, if that makes any sense.
Mm, yeah, it does. And then it comes to what is the feeling that you get from what you're experiencing, and what are you perceiving? Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the inclusion of the pare, the carved face, again, is for me so integral to knowledge progression. And so there's an encoding that's happening in the film in a similar way to how ancestors encoded knowledge into carvings or into dances or into woven things. So I definitely feel like that's something that's happening in this work, and the film is connected to a body of work. The body of work is connected to an ongoing intention and purpose around rematriation of sacred cultural belongings and materials and ancestors that are far away from home and wanting to be returned, and the home people calling for that return to happen, and so I think that's all imbued in the film as well, in a subtle way. That's why I say it's a love letter. It's a longing for hokainga, to be whole, to be kind of returned. And what does it take to be whole?
That's interesting, because there is that beautiful imagery of the swimmer, but ultimately I saw the message. I thought of the message as a warning. Please don't mess up the oceans any more than you already have. Okay.
Mm.
And that's what I took the zoom in shot of the tattooed head to be. And I'm sorry if I'm misinterpreting it, but that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Not at all, and it's really open. I mean, I think it's a type of portal in itself for multiple reflections of people to dream their own dreaming into it. I think that's sort of what is trying to be achieved, even if there is a clarity for me around what I think also is, the tattooed head. It's it is a warning. It's prophetic. It goes beyond the time-space continuum, from the future beings calling to the past to be present in the now. And yeah, don't fuck it up, you know, in terms of, I think Biolumin as a title is also a subtle way to acknowledge the electrical light energy that is part of the chemical, which is the intimate animacy of everything. Everything is alive. Everything, you know, has mana, maori. And so the techniques of also that James included with the mirroring, we're also interested in how it kind of starts to form a potential of a dreamscape that brings about these entities, you know, and the yeah, and a type of, I don't know, it's like a beautiful queering of, or mythologizing of plant and water and song. Mo, you know, is a Métis two-spirit drum carrier, and her whisperings is in language, Nehe Yawo in language, and also Te Reo. So it's the ancestral whisperings that are kind of conjured, you know, in it throughout the work as well. Lots of layers.
You wanna read
Yeah,
that?
so Bill Thomas, a comment to you, Victoria. There are so many elements of this that reflect the common pieces that we have as Pacific people. The elements of light and dark coming from the Po, the darkness of the waters where we return to the elements of the ocean that we carry within each of us, and the seaweed, sargassum, or as we call it, limukala, which is a key element of ceremonies of forgiveness, reminding us that forgiveness is actually part of us, within us, yet it is something that is one of the hardest parts of our lives. Ka'ahiloa, water is life, not only fresh water, but our kaimoana and the tatau, to me, reflect something about my family history, whakapapa, and status.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's what's powerful around what you say, is that how the reciprocity of sharing brings about, you know, new knowledge. You know, I didn't understand about the ceremonies of forgiveness. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, whakapapa, family history.
See, what
Yeah,
I like about a film such as yours is that, in a sense, it encourages people to think about who they are. Because if they come from the south of France, or the shores of Iceland, they also have a relationship with the water. It is also a source of life, of their equivalent of kaimoana. And so they have those stories as well. And so it seems to me what it does is, as Bill has so eloquently written there, it gives us an opportunity to, in a sense, share our common bond with those kinds of connections with the water. So,
You know, I'm wondering if any of our panelists would like to pose a question to any of the other panelists. As filmmakers and collaborators in film, if there's something that intrigued you about one of these other films that you'd like to delve into a little bit. Not that I want to put you on the spot, but I guess I put you on one.
yeah.
Sorry.
Let me,
I mean,
oh,
I was struck also in terms of what it is to move through what space and time, you know, as within an Indigenous knowledge system, you know, how, you know, we regard the va or the wa, you know, or space. And I really appreciated the portal traveling that was happening, you know, in like Barbara and Marshall, and you know, that sort of way of kind of moving through and across different realms was really kind of struck me. Yeah. That's more of a comment, but yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's very cool. Well, I mean, we also had the element of trance, you know, of being in a trance-like state that can bring you to different realms, right? And I always picture that, you know, the way that we see time and space, there's many ways to describe it, but it's like a circle or a spiral, right? It's almost like there's things happening at the same time, you know, like my ancestors, our ancestors are around us, are like everything's there, right? But how do you tap into it? And I think, yeah. Anyways,
Everything's connected.
Yeah.
In some way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Maori we have a very well-known saying, walking backwards into the future. And I really love that expression because it really acknowledges that the future is actually here, you know, as well. And it's circular in that way.
I have a question. It's kind of like a general question to whoever wants to answer, but I just wanted to know what your favorite part of the creation process was and what was the part that was more challenging to you. And yeah, I'm just curious about your experiences in creating these films.
Jerry, you want to take a stab at that?
When I first got into film school in undergrad, I forgot what short little film I did, but the professor's like, "You're just showing me images and you're telling me something. I don't feel you in it." And after that, I kind of delved into my own personal life experiences and tried to tell them and it was mostly because of the class assignments, but they were nice little chunks where we're able to, like, all right, how do you tell the story about this residential school experience in less than 5 minutes? And so it's like it's almost like winnowing it down to its bare essence and then finding a way to express yourself in a way that I feel that and I think that's in with all of our projects, is that there's a level of not telling the whole story, and for me it's like wanting the respect that I'm only giving you the information that I think that I want to share, and one that I think you need to see. But it's not my duty to fill it. Like, there could have been a giant title card in my piece to give some context to residential schools for people who might not know what they are. But in the end, I think the thing that I like the most is it's stressful, but after I do something like this, and then I kind of like do final export, and I'm like, Terry, what did you just do? You know, because I like it, but at the same time I'm like, so then you hope when it resonates with other people and you see how they relate to it, then then I feel that I feel in some ways I feel like the story finds me, and it's something that I just find a way to actualize it. And then when it's making the festivals, then I'm the caretaker of that story. I just make sure it stays on its path. And yeah.
I really resonate with that, Terry, about, from my perspective, one of the pleasures, Marshall, is about how creation and creativity and the spark that happens there, and then something kind of gets kind of born or renewed. And there's a kind of mystery around all of that for me. And I feel like a lot of the work is happening in a subterranean sort of liminal and subconscious way. And so when there is an opportunity to come together and kind of start to spark, and then watch something grow, there's a big pleasure in that. So I think for me, it in this moment, it's collaboration. And having come through the pandemic at that time, like that was made in 2020. So we were right sort of in the middle of all the disruptions, lots of things changing. And I think in this kind of little slither, being able to appreciate how through the technologies, connectivity, can happen. What is that, form of connectivity? And then just bringing, two really beautiful other human beings together to co-create, enlightening something, and just the joy of being able to create together, and so that's the pleasure. That's the
Bon, pour moi, c'est le processus créatif, c'est, je pense, le plus important dans mon développement créatif. Et pour moi aussi, c'était beaucoup un plaisir travailler avec la musique et avec l'abstraction, la musique comme un art abstrait. Et ça me permet aussi de faire comme des images et aussi un peu abstrait. C'est comme... Tu peux continuer, mais si tu peux traduire ça.
Okay, so Nicolás just said that at first it was the great pleasure and the attraction to the music, that he was very attracted to the music, and you heard it too. That the last part I didn't hear. It was joining and finding the images that go with it, I think.
Yeah.
Create that creation of loving the music and then bringing that to it as well.
And creating like a form that is so abstract in nature. Yeah.
For me, it was all the part of the process that involves meeting other people and having that shared experience and exchange of perspectives. Like during the process, it was really a collaborative process. That and also sharing the results, because since it's experimental film, it's really interesting to see how people receive it. For me, it's a way to meeting other person, like other sharing an experience with others. That's it.
Let me read a couple of other comments here. I'm going to back up and take them in order. I actually didn't realize that I had not gotten to the end of Bill's comment. So he said to Victoria, he also saw the message as a warning not to mess it up. If we mess up the ocean, we mess up what's part of us. We will mess up all of life. Oh, and then a note that the spell check with Zoom is not very good. And
Right.
unfortunately, my knowledge of Hawaiian is not very good either, so I don't spot Kawai Ola, water is life. We've corrected that. And then he also says that the past and the future connect us. Hawaiians have the same proverb. And I'm not going to read it. You want to read it?
Oh, ika wa
Mama.
manua. Ika wa mahope.
And then on a comment for Terry, it's a story that has colored many family histories. The
Yeah.
images from your film were like the images which flit through a child's mind as though going through an old family photo album, cherished or secretly creating confusion and pain. So for experimental filmmakers who are trying to elicit emotion, which I think is something you all agreed upon early on, we've got a lot of comments about the emotions that you elicited, so good job. If that's not too eloquent.
I have one last thing to say. The idea of filmmaking in the time of COVID leads me to think that we need a film, an indigenous film boccaccio, who will do filmmaking in the time of plague, the way Boccaccio did the Decameron. You know, just instead of a whole bunch of short stories, we'll have a whole bunch of short films. I'm sorry.
We'll leave it to you folks to mull over that collaboration and run with it, or not. I saw Megan briefly come onto the screen and then quietly disappear, but she's signaling that we're at our last minute before we have to sign off. So I want to thank our audience for joining us. We appreciate you being part of the conversation and for joining into the web chat. And a really sincere and heartfelt thank you to each and every one of our panelists. We're so delighted. We were so thrilled that we could put these 3 films together, and even more thrilled when all of you could come together and join us for the panel. So this was a very special evening for us. So thank you all for making it special.
Aloha.
So if anyone wants to, if Megan will give us 1 minute for last words, if anybody wants to say, have a final comment.
Yeah, if anyone has anything they want to toss in at the end. But we just want to thank you all so much for being with us tonight. Thank all of our guests that joined us. And if you enjoyed tonight's program, then please consider donating to the Indigenous Film Series so we can keep bringing you these amazing Indigenous films and Indigenous filmmakers and telling these stories. So I'm going to include a link in the chat that you can make a contribution through. The other thing we want to make sure to point out is October is coming with the film festival. So keep an eye on the DMNS website. And if you follow International Institute of Indigenous Resource Management, we'll both be sharing that out. We've got October 11, 15, and 18 that we're going to have programming for you. So we're very excited to get to be a part of that. And stick around for a couple of seconds here as we wrap up. I'm going to put some URLs in the chat for our wonderful filmmakers to help take a look at the other work they're doing and all kinds of exciting things. So we just want to thank you so much again for being here.
So while Megan is doing that posting, let me just add the October films we are back in the theater at DMNS. So for all of you who've been longing for the live theater experience, next month, join us. We've got great lineups, and we have speakers coming in for every film. We will, just so everyone in the audience and all our filmmakers know, Megan will download the chat transcript and we'll share it with you all. So if there were comments, lots of comments about how much people like the film. So we'll share that with all of you.
Thank you for the curation into this moment with you all, and also, you know, this opportunity to sort of connect with audience, you know, and have this moment to really kind of hear these, you know, wonderful reflections, you know, immediately after seeing the film. That's really special for my film, but also, you know, with all of your films as well.
It's an honor
Thanks.
to share all this with you. with other great artists. So Nyalagoa, Skana, Tony Owanagi.
Thank
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Thanks to this program, I mean, I've got to meet, you know, five other filmmakers that I really did. They weren't on my radar. So I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody else does and maybe a collaboration somewhere. Who knows? But yeah.
This is a collaboration in the making right now.
Alrighty.
Take care.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great,
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
So long, thank you.
Right. Give folks a chance to check out those links. And like I said, keep an eye on the website. We've got really cool things coming. So October, that's when you're going to want to stick around. Like Jean said, we're going to be in-house Wednesday the 11th, Sunday the 15th, and Wednesday the 18th. Thank you all so much.